Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so amazingly primitive that two of them think doing a podcast called Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea is a pretty neat idea. They are Jeff and Bryan. Hi there, this is Jeff. I'm with my friend Bryan, and this is our bonus episode.
Hey Jeff, what is this?
This, Bryan, is the rare and elusive bonus episode.
Oh, it's a bonus episode.
Yes, about our convention experiences that we went to individually and together in 3 consecutive weeks.
Fantastic. I love convention season. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, definitely is. So the first is a convention that you attended, and this is the first time you attended this convention.
Yes, this was quite an experience. Well, it all stems from my Voyager autograph. I have a cast photo of the crew of Voyager.
Yep.
And I have been searching for elusive autographs to complete that image. Mm-hmm. I had 3 that were unsigned earlier in the season. And those 3 were Robert Beltram,
yep,
who plays Chakotay. Tim Russ, oddly enough, and we could talk a little bit about that one, plays Tuvok. And of course, Kate Mulgrew, who plays Captain Janeway.
Kind of the important one in the group there.
100% important. You, of course, know the origin story of that cast photo because you were there.
Right.
The original photograph and the original signature I got was Jerry Ryan,
mm-hmm,
when I also got my individual picture of Jerry Ryan signed at that time. And I've been carrying this particular image around with me for who knows how long. It's been many years.
Yes.
At some point, we'll have to go back and actually figure out what year that was, because we've talked about a lot of our conventions, but I don't know if we went way back in the beginning and talked about some of our first conventions. I do know we were in Chicago at the time.
Right.
So what happened for me for this particular convention is somehow, and I'm sure it has something to do with AI and the fact that the minute you start searching something on your computer, every system in the world knows you have some kind of an interest in it.
Right.
A Facebook feed ad popped up, and it indicated the existence of this particular convention. I feel I need to explain what this convention was.
Yes, what convention was this?
Well, officially it's known as the D&I convention in Philadelphia.
And that stands for Diversity and Inclusion.
That is correct, the Diversity and Inclusion Convention. And it was run by a group in California called Gays in Space.
Gays in Space, yeah. That is a great name.
And I exaggerate it because they do.
Yeah, a lot of A's.
Right, a lot of A's in that statement. And this group got this convention together. This is the second year they were in Philadelphia.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about them the first year, but I think the reason that it popped up primarily is because Kate Mulgrew was a feature of this particular convention. In fact, they had 26 Star Trek-related stars originally slated to attend this convention. And honestly, when I saw the lineup, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to prepare myself for a huge crowd.
Right.
And of course, that's what I anticipated going in. And that is not what I experienced.
No.
Amazingly enough.
That blows me away, actually. The fact
I know
that many Star Trek actors can be in one place at one time.
Right. I mean, it was almost all the Voyager people. They had Robert McNeil, Garrett Wang, Picardo,
mm-hmm,
and other characters in, well, they had the Deep Space Nine characters. You
yeah.
know them, right?
Mm-hmm. Terry Farrell was there.
Right.
Then there were a couple of Klingon actors, J.G. Hertzler and Robert O'Reilly. They play Klingons usually, and they were there. Who else was there?
And it's the crossover gal from, she was in Orville. I don't say primarily.
Oh, yes,
Originally,
Penny Johnson Gerald.
Right, Penny Johnson. She was there. And she also had a role in Deep Space Nine.
Yes.
Anyways, when I saw this list of characters that were going to be attending, I was very excited about it. Frankly, a little nervous. When you're dealing with a new group of conventioneers, you don't know what you're going to get.
No.
I bought my tickets well in advance, way in advance. And then I waited for the usual time when the autographs and or photo ops would show up online so that I could actually buy tickets for those events.
Right.
I wasn't really interested in the photo op opportunities, but I certainly was interested in the autograph opportunities.
Right.
And I checked back on this webpage, and I even got you involved with
Yeah.
it numerous times as the dates were approaching. And each individual time I went out to the site, there was no indication that the autographs were available for sale, except to say there was a message of sorts that said, oh, it'll be later, it'll be later, it'll be later. And I checked even up to the few days before the convention itself, and the autographs were not listed. However, the photo ops were. Mm-hmm. And I felt a little better about that because that photo op group is the same photo op group that I've seen at a number of conventions.
Right.
So I knew that they had a good reputation for the way they handled things, so I figured that part would go pretty smoothly. So I had to anticipate that I would be taking cash.
Right.
And walking the streets of Philadelphia with an undisclosed amount of cash in my pocket. And it made me feel really comfortable.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Riding the subway. Carrying cash.
I did. I rode in on the subway and carried all that cash, and I took to heart what I told you many years ago about what it's like when you're walking in the streets of Philadelphia, and that was that. Well, what did I tell you? Do you remember?
I do not remember.
About how you can tell a person from New Jersey from a person from Philadelphia?
Oh, the walking with the hands in your pockets.
Right, exactly. So typically if you're walking in the streets of Philadelphia, you can tell someone who is native from someone who is not native. And the non-natives will frequently have their phones or hands in their pockets. And the ones that are native are going to have their hands where they are available for any type of emergency. That's a polite way to put it.
Yes.
Anyway, so the first day I planned on going over to the convention. Like I said, I did take the subway. I got there on time. In fact, I got there a little early, and they were still setting up.
Okay.
When I say early, I was less than 30 minutes, 15, 20 minutes early to when the convention was supposed to start at like 10 a.m. on a Friday. And I did walk up and down the vendor area and noticed there was maybe a dozen vendors out in the hall area.
Okay. And
back in the autograph area, I walked back there. There was about 9 or 10 in a circle in the middle. And the outside area was reserved for the autographs. And as I was walking around the autograph area, I got a little nervous because I saw the images of all the people who were there to do autographs. It's kind of typical that when you go to these conventions, there's a photograph and a name of the actor posted along the wall behind the table where the handler and the artist will be sitting to do the autographs.
Yes, usually because the signing session is so far after their career, you wouldn't recognize them.
And you know what? That's 100% true, especially with the gentleman who played Klingon.
Right.
I think I told you the story. I thought it was kind of funny, and I felt ignorant about it, but it was sort of funny. The whole time I'm walking up and down, for the 3 days I was there, I'm looking for this Hertzler gentleman, and at his table, there was an older woman, and I'm going to say she was in her late 80s, and a very heavy-set young man who looked to be in his 40s, maybe late 30s.
Okay.
and they were sitting at his table.
Okay.
And I kept looking at the large man thinking, well, he was wearing a lot of makeup. Is that what he looked like? But fortunately for me, there was never a handler there, so I figured that he wasn't the actual signer, and he was not. The actor that played the character came in on Sunday afternoon and looked very much his part with the long gray hair, and he was actually in his mid to late 80s, as it turns out. So it's quite interesting, that part of it.
So anyway, you were looking for Kate.
Right. That was really the focus of what I was there for. The interesting part to me was, as soon as I got into the convention, I'm starting to wander around the halls, and I met a few people. And remember, this is the Diversity and Inclusion Convention in Philadelphia. And I'm thinking, with 26 Star Trek people, the one group that would probably not be included would be the, let me say, portly Caucasian men of influence. If I had to define the entire Star Trek spectrum of individuals who are fans, I would define them like that.
Yeah, right.
Oh, gosh. But what I did find was pretty thoroughly amazing to me. The first person that I ran into was a younger woman who was walking with a cane, and she told me her story.
Okay.
And I know we've discussed it before. I was wearing a graphic t-shirt. One of our podcast t-shirts, in fact.
Okay, yeah.
And you know the story. People just wander up to me and start talking to me when I'm wearing a graphic t-shirt. I don't know what it is. I don't know exactly why. But even small children are likely to do this. So this young woman walked up to me, and then she told me her story. She was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease when she was very young, and her mother blamed her for having this terrible disease. So she felt ostracized by her mother, and she picked up on Janeway as a mother figure, and her whole reason for being there was that Janeway was her replacement mother.
Oh, wow.
So she had traveled about an hour in from the west side of Philadelphia, and she was telling me that she would not be able to attend on Sunday because the trains didn't travel enough or frequently enough on Sunday. And I thought that was kind of interesting, and I really did expect that there would be a lot of local people. But oddly enough, the next gentleman that I met was a Jewish gentleman from Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow.
He was wearing his yarmulke, and he told me that he had not flown for over 7 years. And this was the first time he'd gotten on a flight for the last 7 years, because he had been in a major airline crash 7 years prior. But he was desperate to go to Israel, and he needed to do some flying so that he could go, get his feet wet again.
Baby steps, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So he flew in from Tennessee to this convention here in Philadelphia, again, just to see the folks in the Star Trek universe. The next person that I met was actually one of the handlers at the tables. She was sitting there by herself, and she was sitting at Robert McNeil's station. So I walked up and I just, chatted her up a little bit. And she turned out to be a young lady who was a volunteer from South Carolina.
Okay.
And oddly enough, she was from the same town where my father was raised in South Carolina. So I meet three people at random. Okay. And I meet them from Tennessee, South Carolina, and Philadelphia.
Okay.
I'm thinking, wow, talk about diversity.
Yeah.
I'm like, so how did all these people get connected? And I did have a chance to talk back and forth with them, and each of them had either a connection to the group or the people running the show. They knew of or knew about the show from one of their own personal contacts. Probably the most interesting one that I met was a gentleman from England who happens to have been a student in Oklahoma who was a drag artist.
Okay.
And he was a tall, thin man, and he was studying in Oklahoma in environmental science. And I just was, again, blown away that out of, again, 4 random people, and they're from such diverse locations within the United States. I didn't expect that. That was not even near what I was thinking would happen.
Considering I heard about the convention when you found it local, I'm amazed at how far-reaching people came. Like,
oh, yeah.
And I guess we can mention this if we want to promote the DNI Con a little bit. They have 2 conventions a year. One in Philadelphia, but one is in San Francisco, where they're based out of.
Right. Correct.
Is the San Francisco one before or after in the year?
I think it's after. I think. I'm not 100% sure.
But you can type DNI Con into Google with San Francisco and you can find.
And the last person that I met that I had any long conversations with, who wasn't one of the actors, was a lady from Orlando, Florida, who was a writer. And she was up from Orlando to promote her book. Absolutely interesting conversation with her. And I guess I didn't write this one down, but the other one that I met was, she was actually one of the speakers at the convention. She worked with NASA and building the habitat that they're going to use on the moon.
Okay.
So she is part of the team that's building that particular habitat. Primarily, she's in the design and software end of it. Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And I bought her book since I felt like it would be the right thing to do. I did spend about 30 minutes just chatting her up. We were talking about aliens and the potential for interstellar travel. And I thought it was a fascinating conversation. So I bought her book.
3 books, I believe.
Yeah, it's actually 4. And it's called Silly Little Robots.
Okay.
It's about AI that comes to life and the humans that design them are no longer around. And I was explaining to her that you and I do a podcast.
Right.
About Douglas Adams.
Yes.
And The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Among other authors that I spoke with her about. And, of course, after I bought the books, she signed them. I put them in my backpack and took them home. And the next day, when I opened up the book, she had signed, "I hope that the robots in your life bring you joy."
Yes.
Share and enjoy.
Share and enjoy.
So again, my primary focus here was to get the autograph from Kate Mulgrew. And that was an interesting process. On the first day while I was there, I saw this gentleman leaning up against the wall. He looked exhausted. And I wandered over to him, and he said to me, "Man, I can't take it. I just had 2 glasses of orange juice, but I just don't have the energy to get up off this wall." And I'm like, "Was there anything I can do for you? Are you okay?" And he says, "Oh, yeah, I'll be fine." And he introduced himself as John, and he was the primary driver of this particular convention.
Oh, all right.
Extraordinary gentleman, obviously lots of energy. He was the back screen guy, but he was driving the agenda, you could tell. Everywhere I saw him, he was involved with significant operations of the program.
Right.
But what delighted me beyond belief was how cordial and friendly he was to me, the average attendee of one of his conventions. Obviously a busy man, obviously didn't have to take the time to talk to anyone.
Right.
But he did. I mean, I asked him about Mulgrew. I said, do you know if she'll be signing? Because her photograph wasn't up anywhere. And he said, yes, she would be. And he gave me approximate time. And I said, thank you. And then I did run into him 2 or 3 other times. And on Saturday, when Kate Mulgrew was there, she did a panel discussion and all that, and we were coming close to the time when she was going to be in the autograph area. I asked him again when and where she might be signing, and he pointed out the table she would be sitting at, and again gave me a time of 3:15, I think it was, that he told me.
Right.
And truly enough, that's when she was there. And through his advice, I was able to snake my way around and get to start standing in that line early enough that I was like 12th or 13th in line to get Kate Mulgrew's signature.
Okay.
And I felt awesome about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the line quickly expanded to beyond the end of the room.
Because nobody knew where she was going to be until she sat down.
No, exactly that. I didn't mention before, the access to the actors at this particular convention was phenomenal. On Saturday, the primary day, and Saturday can be a horrible day at conventions. It's just so crowded and so difficult to move around. But even on Saturday, you were able to get up close and personal with these actors. And they were congenial and signing, as you would expect them to be. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I'm standing in line, and the gal that's standing in front of me and the gentleman standing in front of her, started talking about the autographs. And both of them had prepaid autographs that they purchased online.
Oh, okay. They had the super secret password or something.
What? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, how the heck did you get autographs online? And he said, oh, we bought them. I said, when? I mean, when did they go on sale? Well, like the day before. The day before the convention started, the autographs became available online. And I'm like, uh-oh. And, and they not only had an autograph online with a barcode, they had a time for their autograph.
Oh.
So I'm thinking, oh, bummer. All this effort to get up front, and they're going to start taking timed autographs. So I'm thinking, oh man, I'm going to get pushed back. And then the gal in front of me said, dang, I forgot to bring the second item that I wanted Kate to sign. Would you want to buy this other digital autograph I bought? And I said, sure. Because I figured, okay, well, that'll help me stay in line.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to make sure I got the autograph. And I wanted 2, actually. So I gave her the money. And interestingly enough, it was only $50.
Wow.
And I say only $50. At some level, that should be appalling. But for Kate Mulgrew and the level of actress that she is, and the difficulty with which I have gone through to actually get to see her, I was prepared to pay quite a bit more than that.
Right.
In fact, I thought at the time that the $50 price was an online special discount price, and that when I got up to the actual table that I would be paying more in cash. But anyway. So we stood there, we chatted, we talked, we waited, and you do have to wait in line. So about 20 minutes later, the gentleman is talking to the gal again. The two of them are talking, and I'm kind of listening in and half contributing my 2 cents. And he realizes that she had the other item in her bag. So she's like, oh, I do have the second item. So she gave me back my cash. And I'm sitting there with the cash. I'm still worried about whether I'm going to have to get out of line. But just as I'm worrying about going through the line and whether or not I'll be able to pay cash and stay where I am, the gal that I met from South Carolina, who is the handler, started walking back through the line. She was going to be one of the folks that was working the crowd to make sure that everybody was ready. And she was coming back through the line asking if they had the prepaid ticket vouchers.
Right.
And she got to me, and said, "Do you have a prepaid ticket voucher?" And I said, "No, I was planning on paying cash." And she said, "Oh, that's great." And then just moved on.
Whew, all that worry
Yeah.
and stress
Yeah.
for nothing.
And I'm thinking to myself, well, it's good to have low friends in high places, you know?
Yes.
So all of that went really well. And I will tell the tale. And I don't know what this exactly says, but I'm going through the line, and most of the folks in front of me are prepaid. And they're all getting their signatures, and Kate's doing a nice job chatting everybody up and talking to them. I go through my line, I get my 2 signatures, and they're trying to hustle me away. And literally John was standing next to me, and I'm holding on to my stuff and trying to juggle everything so
Right.
it can dry before it, I don't want the signatures to smudge and all.
Right.
But I know that I have to pull my cash out of my pocket, and so I end up putting my stuff down on the other table. But I could have literally walked away at that time, and they would not have done anything.
Oh, right.
But I stopped, and I got my cash out, and I paid my money, and then I left on my way. So it was interesting. Very interesting.
And then you got Tim Russ's signature too, correct?
I did. I got Tim Russ. And what was interesting about that is you and I have seen Tim Russ before at a number of conventions, apparently, because I literally have like 4 or 5 other Tim Russ signatures on different pieces of material.
That all came before you got your cast.
I guess it must have been. It had to have been, because I don't know how I would have ended up with Tim Russ's signature and not have it on the cast photo, because I would not have failed to bring it had I needed it when we were going to see him.
Right.
So now I'm down to Robert Beltran. He's the only one that I haven't gotten. And then you and I and my wife had an interesting conversation about Robert Beltran.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to relate the story?
Well, I was telling Denise a little bit about it, and all I remember is how impressed I was with her saying, "Bryan needs this signature. I want to help him get it. Anywhere, anytime, any place, any price, doesn't matter. We're going to go get it." So I looked up online and found that the next time he's going to be signing is a Star Trek cruise in February of 2025, which it's got to be $3,000, $3,500 a person. And she's like, "Wait."
And the funny thing is, I don't think she was objecting to the price, because her objection really was, he's not going on a cruise without me. That's
right.
what she said.
Well, Denise and I have never been on a cruise.
Mm-hmm.
So what we were thinking is, I am not going to be able to go on a cruise without her.
Right.
Nor is her first cruise going to be a Star Trek cruise.
Oh, don't know. I would not recommend that at all. No way. No way in the world. Oh.
So you can count us out in February of 2025.
Well, apparently I am counted out of 2025.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she didn't go for it.
No.
Oh my gosh. So I'm still short the one signature, and I still hope to get that one day. And it was an exciting weekend because I finally got Kate's autograph. And one of the things that I think is kind of fun for me is you and I have been collecting cards forever.
Right.
And in the one card collection that I have from Star Trek, Voyager, they had what was called an autograph challenge.
Right.
On the back of each of these autograph challenge cards, and there were 9 of them, you would fill out your name and information. And if you got all 9 of these cards, then they would send you a copy of every single autograph that was in that particular autograph series. And it had like 30 autographs,
right,
including Jerry Ryan. And when you buy a box of cards, you know that we typically get like one autograph card in a box.
Right.
And in a box, what do you have, like 20 or 30 packs or something like that?
it's between 16
something
and
like that.
24 somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And I know that I usually bought 2 boxes if I bought a box. That way I can guarantee myself a full common set, which is usually guaranteed in a box, depending on, what you get.
Right.
At least in this type of card box. And they have little pieces of clothing sample in that set too.
Right.
Where they have original costumes that are cut up into like a 1 by 1 inch square of costume.
Right.
Into a card. And like I said, they had different autographs. Well, I happen to have gotten pretty darn lucky, in my opinion, because I got a Jerry Ryan autograph card in the set. And I got a Jerry Ryan costume card in the sets.
Yes, that was one of the greatest box opening experiences that I've ever done.
Yeah, it was really exciting. But the one challenge card that was the rare, super rare one, the impossible one to get, was actually Jerry Ryan. But in the intervening time, and now including my autograph by Kate Mulgrew, I now have 7 of the 8 challenge cards, autographed challenge cards, signed by the actor that portrayed the role.
Wow.
And I think that's fun because, the idea was to get all these cards and then get the whole set of autographs. Well, now I have a whole set of autographs and I never got the 9th card.
Right. But you do have Jerry Ryan's signature anyway.
I do. And it's interesting because that's how I display it. I put the 8 cards around the outside with the signed Jerry Ryan card in the middle of the 9 card pack. So it looks like I have a full set of signed autograph cards. That was a fun experience.
And because I couldn't attend that, and I have a Star Trek IX trading card set that I have a lot of signatures on, I had you get a couple of signatures for me.
Mm-hmm.
So Terry Farrell.
Yep.
And
very nice woman.
Yeah, I haven't heard any of the stories about them. And you did talk about J.G. Hertzler.
I did.
And then Penny Johnson-Gerald, who plays Sisko's wife. She isn't featured very much in the trading card set. You have to look long and hard to find her image. But there was a decent one on the page that I have Avery Brooks' signature on. So
right.
I have his signature, and then she's with him in a different card on that same page. So so that was nice. I thank you again for getting that, because I couldn't have done it.
Right. And I don't know if I even told you this, but I had a long conversation with Penny. After I got the signature, she was free from anybody behind me, so I chatted her up for quite some time. From Orville, the character who plays the sentient robot, and one of the other characters, and I don't know the Orville character names, were sitting next to her in the autographed area. And at one point when she was chatting me up, she said she had to interrupt me and go talk to these guys, getting rid of me, politely, but very politely.
A brush off.
Yeah, exactly. But you could tell almost instantly when she walked up to these other 2 gentlemen. Now, I wouldn't know exactly how old she was. I'm terrible with figuring out ages. But you could tell as soon as she walked up to these other 2 actors, they thought she was their mother. I mean, she's just like telling them what to do and how to be and how to do what's next. And, just the motherly advice was just pouring out of this woman. You could just tell it from a distance, Very lovely actress and a very, very nice person.
Well, she had a little bit of difficulty with her kids on the Orville.
That's 100% true. Oh, I hope the Orville comes back. I really do.
Yeah. It's an interesting show to watch if you watch it for what it is instead of what you hope it is.
Right, exactly. And then the final thing that I'll mention at the D&I convention was that I didn't need a signature from Robert McNeil, but another show that I'm very fond of is Resident Alien.
Right.
So in the final episode of this season of Resident Alien, I saw Robert McNeil's name pop up on the screen like 6 different times.
Right.
And it was the first time that I had noticed his name in the show.
Right.
But shortly thereafter, I realized he was a producer of this particular show.
And you're usually watching what's happening on the show. You're not reading production credits.
Right. So I'm watching the titles, and all of a sudden it says written by and directed by and produced by. And I'm like, holy moly. So I'm like, I didn't know the connection was there. And so I was standing just in the area. There was no one at his desk at the time, and I just walked up to him and I chatted him up about how excited I was about the material and what a terrific job I think he did on that. What a fantastic way of leaving a cliffhanger in the story. And it's funny because, like you say, that show could be so campy and so stupid. And I know your wife and my wife both think it is.
Right.
But it's got a very emotional connectedness that I like.
It surprises me how emotionally attached I'm getting to these characters who are ridiculous. But you can't not, because they're real ridiculous.
Right. And it has to do with the producing, and it has to do with the writing. You know, I mean, it's very well written. And of course, me being as oblivious as I am, I didn't even realize that Alan Tudyk was the main character in the show. I mean, I don't know where my brain goes sometime, but Alan Tudyk, of course, is from one of your favorite shows.
Absolutely. Firefly.
And of course, he's done a lot of voice acting and a lot of other roles and a lot of other places. I was really looking forward to seeing Alan after I talked to Robert, because he was going to be featured in the Fan Expo, which was 2 weeks later.
Yes. But between the DNI Con and Fan Expo Philly, here in Chicago, we had our C2E2, which is the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo.
Right.
And I put out a call on, my channels of Facebook and Messenger and texting to different family and friends saying I was going, and my uncle said he wanted to go with me. Like, hey, could I tag along? I'm like,
I love it. Mm-hmm.
Sure, no problem. And this was his first comic convention ever, so he just kind of wanted to see what it is. Now, we're not young, and he's a bit older than I am, 15 years or so. And
yep.
So there's a lot of walking when it comes to these things. And
oh gosh,
unlike Philly, both times, DNI or the week after at Fan Expo, where you have 3 days to see everything and do everything. Mm-hmm. For me, I was only able to go to the C2E2 one day on Sunday. So that is an all-out, you're just going. And I had a lot of things that I was trying to accomplish that day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Sunday is usually a good day at the convention because the crowd is thinned out quite a bit.
Yes, absolutely. So his big joke that he liked to do a number of different times was to walk by and see the sign about cosplay, which says cosplay is not consent. And then he'd go, oh, man. And he'd pretend to complain. And I'm like, what? Wow, just don't go there. And then a week later, when we were at Fan Expo, obviously the signs are all over. And we were discussing the non-specificity of what they're saying isn't consent. It just says cosplay isn't consent. But consent for what? And we concluded that whatever it was that you were thinking, it's that.
Exactly right. Whatever you're thinking, don't.
Yes.
And maybe they should change the signs next year to say exactly that.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Oh, some of the greatest cosplay we've ever seen, I think, has been at the Fan Expos.
Yeah, they have had some tremendous cosplay. C2E2 has it as well. I mean, it's even bigger. They hold the C2E2 in a bigger convention than Fan Expo here in Chicago.
Wow. I'd love to see that someday.
So I did go to get a few trading cards added to my collection, get some signatures. And the first one that I tried for was character actress, been in many, 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 many things, including the Alien franchise. It's Veronica Cartwright. She played Cassandra Spender on the X-Files.
Mm-hmm.
And since we went to the X-Files convention and I got a bunch of signatures, now that's another one that I need to keep adding to whenever I have the chance.
Yep.
So as I mentioned, I could only go on Sunday, and there's this laundry list of things that I'm trying to accomplish, and I look, and she was the earliest signing time at 11 o'clock. So I'm like, all right. She's not the big draw here. I can get in her line. It's relatively short. I can get her autograph right away and then zip down and stand in a line that I know is going to be much longer. Well, you stand in this line and you wait, and 11 o'clock comes and you wait, and 11:15 comes and you wait, and 11:30 comes and you wait and you wait. And like 45 minutes after her start time, she finally arrives. And there's people ahead of me who are looking at their watch going, like, I've got a photo op scheduled like at noon. Like they came here at 11 to get this autograph so they could get other things done. And she's just winding into her table now. And so when they make you wait for no reason that they're divulging, it's very, very frustrating. And it does make the autograph a lot less, I don't know, enjoyable to have. Like, well, I got it, but I paid for this experience. After I finally got Veronica's autograph, the next one I was there for was Hayden Panettiere from Heroes.
Right.
When Heroes came out, it was absolutely groundbreaking television, in my opinion. I loved every episode.
Yep.
Denise loved every episode. We watched it all the time. We could not miss it.
Right.
And so even though I don't have any other Heroes signatures, I figured I'd get Hayden's because she's the cheerleader.
Right.
She was saved. And so that's why we're here.
That's all you have to know. She's a cheerleader.
Yes. I'm standing in line and I meet this guy who calls himself a super collector. And I had never really understood what a super collector was. And I asked him if it was more like a completist. And he's like, no, not really. So the best way to explain it is, so you talked about the autograph challenge from that Star Trek Voyager set. And they had like 30 different people signed in that set.
Right.
And there's 30 different autographs. A completist wants one of all 30 of those autographs. So they have the complete set. He wants as many of the Hayden Panettiere autographs from that set as he can get. So he shows me this picture on his phone, and he's got like a dozen identical autographs from the like. So he's making the Hayden card more valuable and harder to find because every time he sees one come up for auction or for trade somewhere, he's getting it. So he's hoarding all of the Hayden cards. I'm like, wow, I've really never thought that was a thing. I had a friend who kind of was that way about Hudson Lake, but he didn't, in my opinion, he didn't go out of his way to collect as many of them as he could. If he happened to get one, he would keep it. He would never trade it away. But he wasn't actively trying to get as many of them as they could.
Right.
And this guy's holding a duffel bag full of stuff, and he's going, how many things can I get signed? How many things can I get signed? I'm like, how many do you got? And he's like, I don't know. He's got this plastic tube with rolled posters in it, and he's got a duffel bag of merchandise. So he ended up going to the handler and talking and asking if there was a limit. And then when he told him what he had, they called him back behind all the curtains so he could set all of his stuff out on a table. So when she was done signing in the front, she could just come back and just quickly sign all of the different things that he had.
Wow.
at $80 a pop.
Oh, jeez.
So now here, Kate Mulgrew,
Mm-hmm.
$50.
Mm-hmm.
Little tiny con. Hayden Panettiere, not that she's not a good actress or anything, but $80 for her autograph.
Mm-hmm.
And the super collector blamed it on The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Now, I will say that I'm not going to blame it on The Walking Dead because I think it started before The Walking Dead, but this is where he noticed it. He said he was at a convention and there was, I don't know, some pretty decently well-known actor from some program. Don't know who it was. It doesn't matter at all. And he's sitting and he's signing for $25. And at the table next to him, he called it Zombie Number 3. Was charging $30 for their autograph and had a big line. And this guy's going, Zombie Number 3 is charging $30. Why am I sitting here signing for $25? And so that's his reason for the skyrocketing in the price of autographs. And I guess I'll throw this out here because this is a thing that bothers me, and it happens at different conventions and different people do different things. But when they have two different prices for their autograph based on what you're signing.
I've seen this.
And I can understand if it was, to give you an example, at C2E2, Christopher Lloyd was there. We saw him at Fan Expo not that long ago.
Right.
But he was at C2E2, and when he's signing, it's, if you want me to sign an 8x10, it's this much. But if you want me to sign a hoverboard, or if you want me to sign, these pop things, these
Funko
little
Pops.
figurines.
Yeah, the Funko Pops.
The Funko Pops. Those are more difficult to sign. So I could see where you might want to charge more. But to charge an extra $20 to sign a trading card versus an 8x10, I don't truly understand it. But one of the worst examples I heard, and I think I was telling you about this, and I told everybody in line because it just kills me. Joe Montana is at a sports convention. I don't know if it just happened or if it's going to happen. And if you want an 8x10 signed by him, it is $250. He's Joe Montana. Okay.
Of course.
Sports people want Joe Montana. Great. However, if whatever item you're having him sign is also already signed by Tom Brady, it's $1,500. Like,
I want a dinner and a movie.
you put your hand over Tom's signature. Could you sign right here?
Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous.
But and it's only going to get worse. And like we joked, you've got this Star Trek picture that's got everybody but Robert Beltran. He's going to charge you an arm and a leg man. Oh, I'm the last one?
He's the last one. Oh, gosh.
Normally, it would be $50. However, it's going to be $1,500 if I'm the last one to sign.
Right, right.
So I finally get up and I'm getting Hayden's signature on the card and talking to her a little bit. And I'm not sure if she had a cold or allergies or whatever, but she would stand up every once in a while and she'd go behind the curtain to blow her nose because heaven forbid somebody sees an actress blow her nose in public.
I guess, yeah.
So as we've talked about, it's always difficult trying to come up with something to say that they have not heard 100 million times.
Right.
You only want them to have heard it maybe 10 million times.
Yep.
Her response to what I said was one of the favorite responses I've ever had in any autograph conversation exchange. I said something like, talking about Heroes, I said it was so great of Heroes to show what television could be.
Right.
And then she said, and then they forgot.
Yeah,
Like, wow, that's kind
that's
of hit the
awesome.
nail right on the head.
Absolutely.
And then I got to finally see Gigi Edgley, who was
Hmm.
also in Philadelphia at
She
the
was.
DNI Con.
And I could have spent an hour with her. She's always very polite, very kind, but she didn't have much of a line at her table.
No, it was like you said, a number of Star Trek, and then a couple of other Orville, and then I think she was the only one from Farscape.
Yes, I believe she was. Hmm.
And I did mention that I knew she was at the DNI Con and asked her how it was, and she
Hmm.
just described it as quiet.
Yeah, that would have been a good description. Yeah, I mean and I didn't mention this earlier, but it really reminded me of the old days. It really was the kind of access that we used to get,
Yeah.
except for having to pay the price we have to pay now for the autographs. It was a small place and a few people and, shortish lines and very committed fans.
But I did get to talk to her and gush and gush and gush and gush and gush about how wonderful she was in Farscape. And basically, what I did tell her was it's not that I didn't recognize her or appreciate what she was doing the first time I watched it. It was only on my rewatching of it that I realized how absolutely fantastic she was.
Hmm.
She was so good that you didn't realize she was playing a part. Like
Right.
her alien character was so effortless and flawless. She embodied the character that it wasn't a performance. It
Mm-mm.
was just her being her. She is so fantastic in Farscape. It's unbelievable.
Yep.
So other than the autographs, another thing that I like to do is look through the artist alley and all the different comic book creators that are going to be at these shows and go through databases, and it is a process.
Hmm. And
looking
I
to
appreciate
see
this process, by the way.
looking to see if there are any comic creators who are there that have had something to do with the creation or hopefully even the cover of a comic book that I own.
Hmm.
And I did get 8 comic books signed while I was there.
Wow.
One comic book that I wanted to get signed, the artist was not there. I could not find them. And another one was there the first 2 days, but when I was going around on Sunday to get the last ones I couldn't, he had another commitment and he had left the show. So
Oh,
I'm like,
bummer.
oh, but I got 8 of them.
Wow. That's fantastic.
One of them was by an artist named Joyce Chin.
Hmm.
And she signed a Xena comic that she was part of. And most of these comic creators don't charge at all, or at most $10 to sign a comic book. And I don't remember if she charged for a signature. Because it was maybe $5, but I think it was free.
Hmm. Hmm.
But when I was flipping through some of her work, I saw that she had these small, quick sketches that she was selling for very reasonable price.
Hmm. Hmm.
And since I collect Xena cards and autographs on Xena cards is where it all started for me,
Right. Right. Exactly.
I wanted to see if I could get her to do a couple of quick sketches of Xena characters for me.
Hmm.
And so she said, yep. And I commissioned her to do 4 sketch cards
Hmm.
that I got. And, they're nothing fancy, but some of these trading card sets for these TV shows have original art hand-drawn sketch cards.
Oh yeah,
And
they do.
they're usually from what I would call, and this isn't a slam or anything, but they're sketch card artists. They're not normally comic book artists who are stepping back and doing trading cards. These are artists that the trading card companies hire to do these sketch cards. And
Hmm.
the quality varies greatly.
Oh yes.
And so when you're opening these packs, you never know what you're going to get. But when you get one, it is an original piece.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
It is, even if they've done 15 of the same basic design, there are
Right.
going to be small differences, and they are 15 originals. So I
Right.
do have a
Right.
couple from the comic set, but now
Mhm.
I've got some unique cards for my collection.
I love it. I love it. These are fantastic.
And that pretty much ended up the C2E2 for me. And then I was working on the next Monday, telling myself, all right, only one more week to Fan Expo. And then I thought, well, wait, it's Thursday that I'm going to leave. So it was only a few days before I jumped on a plane
Yep.
and
Yep.
headed out to Philly.
Right. Right. And you had already done the tedious work of going through the artists at Fan Expo to see if there were any comics that could be signed there. And you did me a huge favor, and you found that one of the artists in the artist row did cover art for the one comic book that I actually do collect.
Right.
I have a whole bunch of comic books, but there's only one series that I really collect. It was called The Warlord.
Mm-hmm.
And I was collecting these fresh off the mint,
Yeah.
back in the 80s. And I had, one of the original, minted is not the right word, but originally created comics from that decade, from that period that this artist had drawn in pristine condition, because of course I only read them one time and then put them in plastic.
Yep.
And I actually, fortunately for us, I had 2 copies.
You did, which blew me away.
Mm-hmm. So I gave you one, and I took the other, and we got that signed by the gentleman there at the convention. And it was really a fun interaction, I thought, because he was, I would say, surprised that the image showed up.
Yes, I would say he was.
And he's staring at the image and remembering it. And he flips open the comic book and looks back at some of the information inside the comic book. I'm not honestly sure what he was looking for, but
He was looking for the date. He wanted to see when it was done. Yeah.
Oh, okay. He was looking for the dates of it, but I just thought that was fascinating because this is definitely one that I collected contemporary to its existence, and it was really a fun interaction to watch him sign, and it's a prize of my collection now.
Yes, and if any of you out there are comic aficionados, the artist was Andy Kubert.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to jump back a little bit to my flight because this was kind of funny.
Okay.
So on my flight, I'm sitting next to a guy who's looking at his phone and he's reading a comic book on his phone. And I'm looking at him going, he has to be going to Fan Expo Philly. I mean, seriously, what are the odds that I'd be sitting next to a guy reading a comic book on his phone when I'm on my way to this comic convention? But you know me, I'm not you. I left him alone. I didn't talk to him. I didn't say, "Hey,
No.
you're reading a Hulk comic" or anything. I met him again at the check-in kiosks coming home.
Oh, wow. He was clearly there for the convention.
He was there for the convention. He was in a booth for the Horror and Sci-Fi Prop Preservation Association.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now, I wish I would have bothered him because then we
Right.
could have just gone and got a personal tour of all of this Hollywood prop stuff.
Yeah, and that's fun stuff too. I mean, they have some pretty neat items in those groups.
Yeah. So while we're standing at the gate waiting for our plane that was delayed, I found out that he is a Guinness record holder.
Really?
He is the Guinness record holder for the most collected memorabilia for the DC character Lobo.
Okay.
And I said,
Who?
"Did you break a record? Was there somebody?" He's like, "No." So he had so much he approached Guinness, and then they decided to put him in the book just because of the 4,000 pieces of Lobo memorabilia that he has.
Wow, that's fun.
He actually wrote a book about Lobo, and he is going to be at the Chicago Fan Expo in August. So
Neat.
I'm hoping that I can get out there. I'm hoping you can get out there and I
Right,
will
right.
definitely stop by his table and talk to him when we do.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic.
So we were able to get into the show floor a little early because we were 3-day pass ultimate ticket holders.
Oh, yeah, the ultimate tickets.
So we get to walk around the vendor area and artist alley and stuff. There's no autographs happening because they're not showing up early, but you kind of get really thinned out crowds if you want to see what's for sale, basically.
Right, right.
And 2 years ago at Fan Expo Philly, we met an artist named Ted Woods, and I had him do 3 Firefly sketch cards for me, like the Xena ones that I had done at the C2E2.
Right.
And since then, I've been trying to find either 2 more artists to do 3 each, or wondering if I should wait and go back and have him do the other 6, so I have all 9 characters by the same person. And I was really leaning towards 2 other artists doing 3 each, but I could never find anybody that I thought, you can do them.
Right, right.
So while we're walking around Artist Alley, you see a vendor, or you see an artist that's got all of his work on his table and the wall behind the table.
Him. Yep.
And you're like, hey, check out this guy. I'm like, that's him. So that just told me, just go get the 6 others done from him. That way you'll have the complete 9 set of main characters, all done by the same guy in the same style.
Right, right.
So Friday evening or afternoon, we check back. No, don't have them done yet. Check Saturday afternoon. Don't have them done yet. Check Saturday evening. No, don't have them done yet. Sunday morning. No, I didn't get them done last night. Sunday night. Sorry, I couldn't get them done. I'll mail them to you. I'm like, no problem. I had no qualms with having them mailed.
Right.
I'd rather have him do them right than rushed.
Exactly.
Well, they came in the mail today.
Oh, did they really? That's fantastic.
So I have my 9-card set all put together.
Oh, my goodness. That's spectacular. That's spectacular.
So I know it's a lower quality image on your screen there. And the way you can tell which 3 were the original and which 3 are the new, it's by his signature. So his signature on the 3 older ones, which would be the upper left, the one underneath that, and the bottom right, they actually say Fan Expo Philly 2022 on them, and he's got his full name. Neat. And then the other ones, I think they just say Ted. I don't know if it says Ted Woods, but he did a phenomenal job, and I could not be happier. And I think as a little thank you for letting me mail them and not having them done at the show, he did Jane's hat in color.
I loved it. I love it. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And what's the other part of the story about Ted?
Oh, well, the other part of the story about Ted is that he takes the same train that we do to your house after the show and gets off 2 stops earlier.
Yep, exactly. We get on the train, we're getting on the train, and there he is, and he comes over and says hi. And
yeah, he recognized us and came over.
Yeah.
He didn't put his hand over his head and change cars.
No, right, exactly. So he's a local guy, New Jersey guy somewhere. So that's kind of fun.
Yes. And anybody who's heard us talk about our previous convention experiences, especially with the Fan Expo group, will know that we love the sketch duel.
Oh, yes.
And the beauty of the sketch duel is that after the sketches are made, they sign them and raffle them off. And to me, taking home an original piece of art tremendously increases the value paid for your tickets to the show.
I agree. And it's a lot of fun to watch them, too. And they usually have exciting tales to tell. I kind of liked the old moderator, Joe Wass. We've talked about him before. But the new moderator does a fairly decent job. I had to tell you a story about him. This was actually on Sunday. I was kind of resting a little, sitting at the sketch duel area. And
there were 3 in a row on Sunday.
Right. So you had gone off to go through some comic books or take a look at a couple other vendors, and I was sitting there by myself Well, there was a couple other people in the area, but it was primarily me and 2 or 3 other people. And he came back and he was in a panic. He's running around. He's looking around. And clearly he says he thinks he's had his backpack stolen, and
it had his passport in it.
And it has passport in it. It was kind of interesting because after he was wandering around a bit, I walked up to him and said, "Hey, look, when you came back here, you did not have anything in your hand. Is it possible that you left him somewhere else, like in the green room or something?" And he said maybe and darted off. Well, when he finally arrived, which he did arrive late. I mean, you got back before he did. He came in a little bit late. He had recovered his stuff, and it was, in fact, that he had left them in the green room.
Right.
I was a little disappointed that he didn't thank me personally for for releasing his stress, but, what you gonna do,
Yeah,
he did mention his panic,
So, if anybody is unfamiliar with what the sketch duel is that we're talking about, it's really pretty simple. 2 artists sit up on stage and are taking suggestions, kind of like an improv show, on what characters to draw. They prefer to have some sort of mashup or funny activity because then they can draw some crazy things. But most people are just either not throwing out any activities or things that are so ridiculous that the artist says, I'm not going to even try to do anything like that. And I'm just going to draw one of these characters.
Right.
The quality of the drawings are all very good, but the amount of detail varies greatly.
Right. I mean, in the old ones that we've been to with Joe Wass, they seem to do more drawing and less chatting, but in these...
And they do simpler drawings.
Right.
Simpler sketches, but more of them.
Right. And the ones we attended that weekend were much fewer drawings, but much more detailed, I think.
Yes. And something that the moderator brought up every single time, because he's got to do each show like it's a brand new audience.
Right.
Is they used to have these tucked down in the lower level panel room where there were 5 to 7 people watching. And they would do 4 drawings, 2 drawings each.
Right.
There was one panel we were at that actually had 3 artists one time. This was a couple years ago. But none of that, it was only 2 artists at a time this time. But your odds of winning were so good because there were so few people there.
That's right. And all of these were right on the creator stage, which is right in the heart of the middle of the convention. So I think every seat primarily was filled up,
Yes. So the artists would never get any exposure all the way buried. So they put them up on the creator stage, which then makes it more difficult to increase the value of your ticket. So to speak.
To win, to win a drawing. But what was it that we immediately noticed, or at least I immediately noticed, and you followed up with it as you saw it there?
So the previous sketch duels from previous years that we were at, they would have these cameras up there, but they would never use them. And they would just draw, and you couldn't see what they were drawing. And then at the end, they would hold them up, and there would be a big reveal.
Right.
This time, they decided they were actually going to use the cameras because they have a whole show floor, and to have people watching the drawings happen would get people to come over and create more people to watch the show.
Right. And that's really what it's supposed to do. I mean, that's what it was all about.
Right. So they have an artist on the left and a screen above the artist, and then an artist on the right and a screen above the artist, and the moderator sat in the middle, and the artist that was on the left was drawing, and it came up on the screen on the right over the other artist who was drawing, and his drawing came up over on the left.
They definitely needed some additional AV support in that convention.
Yeah, I went up. I had to say something. I'm like, you've got to find a way to switch these things. And it was one of those, It's too technical. We're not going to worry about that right now. And they didn't for the first one.
Right.
And then at the second one of the creators of the show, or showrunners, I think, came up and said, you've got to switch these. And basically it was pick up this camera, put it on this side, pick up this camera, put it on the other side.
Exactly.
It was not a technical thing.
Nope, it was pretty simple.
Yeah. So the first one we went to had an artist named Casey Parsons. And he wanted to do some sort of a watercolor wash on his work. So before they even started, he wanted to test the paper that was provided in the sketch pad to see if it could take the watercolor the way he wanted. And in no time at all, he sketched out a Batman and had it all colored, and it looked great to me, but he was unhappy with it, so he changed to the Bristol cardstock that he brought with him. And how do I know he did? Well, because I won a full color version of Hellboy in the raffle.
It's amazing. That's an amazing image. You got to share that with the folks.
Right out of the gate, I won a sketch, and I didn't have to worry about it for the entire weekend. And it's in full color. I can't believe that he's giving this away. I mean,
right.
Beyond belief.
But what immediately became apparent to me after that was all the winners were in the first row.
Yes. And there's really no rhyme or reason as to why that was. But for the entire weekend,
all the winners
if you were in the first row, there were winners, yes.
And I watched the gentleman, mix up the tickets and stick his hand down in the bag. He wasn't fishing for anything in particular, but that just seemed to be the way it ended up. That if you were in the front row, you were almost guaranteed to win.
Pretty much. Well, yes, your odds went way up.
Yep, they did.
Well, Friday was not only sketch duels for us. We also got to see the Adam Savage panel between the two of them.
Yes. And Adam Savage is from Mythbusters. That's where most people know him from. And I've been a fan of his, for a long time, but especially since he's gone on YouTube and done his YouTube channel. And I've watched the YouTube channel for years. And one of the things that he's done that I particularly like is he goes to a convention in California, Makers Convention, and does what's called the Sunday Sermon. And these Sunday sermons are some of the best speaking engagements that I've seen. It's like a TED Talk for makers. And what's unique about it to me is that he reaches into his own psyche, and you can tell that the story that he tells and the process that he relates is very personal and really digs into his own soul. And I really appreciate that he is able to do that in front of a crowd of people, and B, puts in that much effort for a half-hour speech. And among many things, he's inspired me. So when I knew that I was going to get an opportunity to see him, I decided that I was going to make something for him.
Okay.
As you know, I'm a woodworker, and what I thought would be fun would be to make a turned piece for him. So I have a piece of hardwood that is a crotch of a tree, and I worked on it for quite some time, actually, a couple weeks. The crotch of the tree gives quite a unique part of the figuring of the grain, so it's usually a very interesting area when you're looking at it. You get feathering and stuff like that. And if the tree is in tension in that area, you can also get this, it's kind of like a wavy sort of grain that's on the sides of the bowl that's caused by the tree actually moving in the wind. So it has like a wave to it, and that's called quilting.
Okay.
And this particular piece, I did do a natural edge plate. My wife, when she saw that it was finished, she said it looked like a cookie plate. And it did kind of look like a chocolate chip cookie with a bite taken out of it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was fun. So I called it the cookie plate, and I signed it, for Adam Savage, and I signed my name. And the year that I did it. And I have to thank Jeff again, because his planning for this convention really paid off. We did see Adam Savage in his speech on Friday. He did a terrific job. He does a panel like that extraordinarily well. He thinks well on his feet.
And he is so genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Everything he's saying is absolutely 100% from the heart, and he is a dream to listen to. He really is. If you've got a chance to see Adam Savage at a convention, go just watch his panel, because he's incredible.
Yeah. So for me, it was another highlight. I mean, I know we're going to skip ahead here, because what Jeff did for us was he bought us our autograph tickets for Adam Savage on Saturday. And so we decided that the best thing we could do is get there early and get in his line as quickly as we could. What was interesting about Saturday morning, we've got the ultimate tags on our shirt, and our lanyards and stuff. And we walk up the stairs of the Philadelphia Convention, and there is a huge line of people lined up around the corner and back into the back area of the convention, all waiting to get in. And I look at that and I think, oh, damn, we're going to have to stand in that line before we're going to go in. But out of the left side of my head or whatever, I hear one of the people that's there guarding the gate saying, okay, something like, ultimate tags go on through. I mean, I barely even listened. Because sometimes if you just act like you know where you're going, they're going to let you go there.
Right.
So we didn't do anything wrong. We just walked right in, So we actually found out later, found out that with the ultimate tag, you could get in a half hour early on Saturday and Sunday, I believe. That allowed us to bypass this enormous crowd. And I went directly back to the Adam Savage line, which was clearly all the way back in the back of the convention. There was already a line by the time I got there, but I was probably like maybe 20th person or so in line, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, something
we weren't
like
too far
that.
back, but...
Right, because there were the folks that had the high-level passes,
the
which
VIPs.
Bypassed the VIP folks. They were over on the other side. There was about 8 or 10 of them standing in line, so we knew they would be first, and then we were in the second part of the line. But the day before, when we actually saw his line, it was like wrapped around and around and around and around, and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I was pretty excited about that. We did have to stand in line and wait until he showed up, but once he did show up, things started moving rather quickly. And I can't say I remember anything I said. But, I was starstruck for me. And Jeff, you said it. He's very personable. He made you feel very comfortable. I had a nice conversation with him. I mentioned his Sunday sermons and how grateful I am that he was able to dig into his soul and do that. He commented that he also enjoys the experience. I gave him the bowl. He commented it was a live edge bowl, and I guess he liked it, but
he was as excited and happy to receive this live edge bowl like it was the first thing anybody has ever given him, when that he's a maker and talks to makers, and if he's going to meet a maker, what's a maker going to do but give you something they made? So
right, exactly.
But he was completely happy and impressed with the cookie plate.
Right. And then, of course, it was immediately swept away by a handler into the back room.
Yes.
Which I think, I guess I can understand that. And we have a funny story to tell about Alan Tudyk and a pile of things.
Yes.
But I was genuinely excited to have spoken to him, and my goal of giving him something was met. I know that he gets so much stuff that it's probably given away immediately, and they probably have roadies in the back that are tossing things around. But I didn't care about that. My goal was just to give him something in appreciation for all that he has given me. And it was his to do with whatever he wanted,
Correct.
I feel good about that.
Yeah. After the Adam Savage panel, we did go to another sketch duel, enjoyed it, but did not come out with anything.
No, I whined and complained like a little girl.
Yes. On Saturday, before we get to Saturday, I want to talk about when we first got there on Friday. We kind of walked up and to the autograph area to see where everybody was going to be, so we knew where to search for them, because it's sometimes hard to see who's where when you've got throngs of people in line.
Right.
So we did find the Adam Savage table, and there were two girls there holding the carpet down, making sure it didn't fly away.
I love that. I love talking to these people. They always have fascinating stories.
And they travel with Fan Expo as crew and do many of these events. And we kind of talked to them a little bit, and they don't have much schedule information because the schedules aren't out. So they don't know anything either. But we did find out from them and from other people in line that even though Adam was not scheduled to do any autograph signing on Friday, he went to his table and did some autograph signing on Friday.
He did indeed.
So that's another thing, that he's there for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not hidden away, comes for his 10 minutes and then zips out of there.
Right. And in fact, I didn't mention it, but while we were at his panel, we were sitting, about 4 rows back or so?
Mm-hmm.
So I took a whole bunch of pictures, and I was really pretty pleased with one of the particular images that I took. And I immediately emailed that image to my wife, who sent it over to CVS. And on Saturday morning, I actually picked up an 8x10 and a 5x7, and that's one of the 2 items that Adam signed for me.
Yes, he saw it. He's like, "Where's this from?"
And I didn't even have time to tell him that the 2 of us were professional photographers. But it was fun that he actually signed a picture that I took of him, in addition to my copy of his book, "Every Tool's a Hammer. Life is What You Make of It." And I debated a lot about this because this book is actually a little dog-eared and, stained, but this is my actual copy, and I'm usually extraordinarily careful with my books. So if you find a book of mine that has a broken spine, then you found a book that I have loved to death, Mm-hmm. His signature here is in the book, and the picture is here, which I will send you a copy of so you can post it with these other images.
Okay. So also on Saturday, we had to miss one of the 4 different sketch duels to see the Alan Tudyk panel.
Right.
And his panel was a typical panel. It was him. He was okay. He was entertaining. He did his thing. It was not the level that Adam Savage was, but
no.
I've never seen a panel like that before.
Yeah, I was surprised because knowing the diversity of characters that he has done and his ability to do the comedic stuff, I really thought he would have been a better panelist.
Well, again, to me, he wasn't bad.
No.
But you're comparing him to Adam,
right,
who just has this gift.
Yeah, that is true. But I do say that Alan has a very unique and very fun thing that he was doing at his panel.
Right. So after the normal interview, they open the floor to questions. I'm not usually a fan of all of that because the questions are not curated.
No.
Anybody can just get up there and ask anything, and there were no questions that were very weird or bad at Alan's panel, which was good because...
Yeah, that was good. Well, one of the questions he didn't really like, which I thought was kind of funny. Well, once you tell the story, I thought it was pretty hysterical.
People just line up on both sides of the room at the microphone, and they go from side to side asking questions. If you ask a question, you get to go up, and Alan will give you what he calls a piece of crap. So he's got his backpack that he carries with him on all of his excursions, and he grabs stuff off the desk of the hotel and lobby and throws it in. So you could get anything from a rewritten script page that they have to do additional voice on.
Right. Which is kind of an exciting piece of paper, but
yes, not crap in my opinion.
Not crap to us or to a fan, but to him, it was literally like folded up and crumpled up in his bag.
Yeah, and he'll sign it and give it to you. However, the plastic spoon.
Right. And that's the funny thing, because he said, I didn't really like that question, so I'm going to give you this spoon.
He said you only asked that to get a piece of crap.
Oh, okay. Something like that.
Yeah. So that was funny. People go up and they'd get different things. I don't know, stationery from a hotel he stayed at, and just all these weird stuff. But he signs them, and
like makeup remover and
yeah, that's right. There were moist towelette makeup remover thing from the hotel bathroom.
Oh gosh, it was hysterical.
But after that, on Saturday, I had to get the autograph on Saturday that I went there for, which was Marissa Tomei.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of disappointing. Nothing wrong with her. She was wonderful. She's beautiful. She was gracious. She signed my Spider-Man trading card that I got of her. But it's difficult to remember that these actors have extensive bodies of work and cannot possibly remember every line they ever uttered in every TV show or movie that they've been in.
Yep.
But because of her role on an episode of Seinfeld,
oh yeah,
I thanked her for making all the short, stocky, balding men very happy. And and she kind of laughed. And I thought that she obviously remembered the episode. But anyway, quick thing about the episode. George Costanza has this crush on Marissa Tomei. And he met somebody who is friends with Marissa Tomei. So he had a friend who was friends with her and found out that her type was short, stocky, bald men.
Right.
So he's like, oh my goodness, but he's engaged at the time. So he doesn't know really what to do.
Yeah, he's looking for a hall pass from his fiancée.
Yeah. So earlier in the episode, George is trying to write some material for Jerry. And he's got this thing where he talks about manure. And why does everybody think manure is so bad? It's two good things put together. It's ma and it's newer. Manure. And Jerry's like, don't quit your day job. Oh, you don't have one. That type of, no, just horrible, no.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Sounds like a pun to me.
Yeah, George gets set up on a date with Marissa Tomei. And when they cut to the date, he is telling that joke to Marissa. And Marissa is going, ma and newer. Yeah, it's two good things. And it's just kind of like that. So after my short, stocky, bald guy comment, I mentioned to her that I have a horse farm. So I don't have any problem with manure, and I like manure too. And she had not the slightest idea what I was talking about. So I tried to quickly explain the scene. She has no idea about the scene. She has no recollection of any of that. So
it was funny.
Oh, no, well, time plus tragedy or whatever is comedy, I guess. But it was so bad. I don't like looking a fool when I'm not trying to look a fool.
No,
like there are times that I can look like a fool because I want to, but when it's not intentional, it's really, really bad.
Oh gosh. But then I have to say though, when we were standing in line, Rainn Wilson was, arms throw away from where we were standing. And you shouted something out to him, and
yes.
he reacted and gave you a thumbs up, and I thought that was really hysterical. And I had to ask you because I didn't get the reference, so maybe you want to tell that little story.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I don't know, the way you didn't realize that Alan Tudyk was the main character of Resident Alien.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I started listening to a podcast called Radio Rental.
Right.
And it's true horror stories told by the people who experience them.
Okay.
And the host is a made-up character who owns a video rental shop.
Mm-hmm.
And his name is Terry Carnation.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of every episode, they're doing the credits. And Terry Carnation character by Rainn Wilson. And I've heard this over and over and over and over and never put together who Rainn Wilson... Like, I didn't expect to know who this was because he does a voice. He doesn't really sound like him.
Right,
so
right.
all of a sudden, it's days before this convention is happening. I'm like, oh my God, it's Rainn Wilson. This is Terry Carnation from Radio Rental Podcast.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
in this podcast, he has a cat that's just a horror cat that causes all these problems for him.
Mm-hmm.
And the cat's name is Malachi.
Mm-hmm,
and I was hoping that I was going to be able to find a time when Rainn was sitting at his table signing autographs and nobody was there.
Right.
But that was
didn't
not going to happen.
No, that did not happen.
So I'm looking, thinking, there's no way possible that I could ever get to say, hey, thank you for doing Radio Rental, or say, hey, I'm a listener of Radio Rental. And we're right near the front. We're like second or third in line, right up at the front for the Marissa Tomei. And like you said, he was just sitting 2 tables down. And for some reason, he stood up and he walked all the way over to Marissa Tomei's table and started talking to somebody. And then he turned around and he started to walk back. And I'm like, I got to be this guy who just shouts things out at people. So I go, hey, Rainn, say hi to Malachi. And he stopped and he turned and he looked at me kind of like, didn't quite understand what I said. And I said, say hi to Malachi. And he's like, all right. Yep. I see you. Yep. All right. Thanks. Yeah. So he understood. So I was able to say, there is a listener of your podcast here and he knows and appreciates it. So yeah, got to do that without standing in a second line.
Right. Exactly. That was fun. That kind of acknowledgement is fun. And he did acknowledge you with a thumbs up. So
yes,
I like that.
So there were 3 of the 4 sketch duels that we did attend. And it's hard to say all of the different artists who were there because even though they had a schedule with listed artists, some were just to be determined and some were there, but they didn't show up or they couldn't do it, and there were substitutions. So we don't really know all the different artists who were there, but we did have a little bit of luck in one of the sketch duels on Saturday. So here's one where they did actual improv, throw out suggestion type of things.
Right. And this is one also where the artist decided that they would not do it with the camera pointing at it and they would do a reveal at the end.
Right.
So everybody shouted out some crazy idea and then the artists started drawing.
Yes, and you just sit there and you listen to them talk and you can't see any of the drawing and you don't know what they're doing. And you don't even know what they're doing because so many different suggestions are being thrown out that you don't know what they're going to pick.
Right. And it just so happened that I got to win one of the 2 drawings that were done in that sketch duel. And I got a picture, a fantastic picture.
Yes.
Of Deadpool dressed as Wonder Woman cleaning up a crime scene. And again, I'll send you a picture so that you can post this one.
Yeah, we'll put this on Instagram with the autographs that we have and the sketch cards that I got.
And this is from, I guess, a somewhat famous artist, Grumman.
Tom Grummett.
Tom Grummett. One thing I did notice, and we didn't even really talk about this, is that almost every one of the artists that they had a sketch duel with were Canadian.
Yes.
And, of course, the Fan Expo people, all of the organizational people are from Canada. So I guess I shouldn't have been surprised by that, but I was a little curious why there weren't any American artists being featured at the sketch duel.
I don't have an answer, but it's who will say yes a lot of times.
Yeah.
So Sunday rolled around, and there were 3 sketch duels in a row.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, we had to get Alan Tudyk's autograph.
Right.
And so it was nice to meet him and talk to him, not only about the painful subject of Firefly, but about his current show, Resident Alien.
Right. I got an opportunity to mention that I had seen Robert McNeil 2 weeks prior, and I mentioned to him, of course, that I recognized that he wrote it, and I did tell Alan that how much I appreciated the writing of that particular show, because like Jeff had mentioned before, there's an emotional content to the characters that only can have come through because it's exceptionally written.
Yes.
I'm hoping, it sounded like there was some question about whether or not it's going to have another season, but we'll see.
Yes, I know. It'd be a shame if it didn't, because it ended on such a cliffhanger.
That was a good cliffhanger.
But the best part of all of that, and this is the thing that you're not quite sure what you're going to do, but you've been giving me a hard time about not handing out all of the stickers that we had made with our podcast logo on it.
Right. So we're standing in line, and I'm thinking to myself, you got to hand out these stickers. Why did we have these stickers made if we don't hand them out to somebody? So he's chatting up this guy in the line next to him. I don't overhear the conversation, but I'm thinking, if there's any chance at all, he should have a sticker in his hand to give him a sticker. So I poke him on the shoulder in the middle of the conversation, and I hand you a sticker, and you start laughing and just look at it like I'm nuts, But then we get up to the line with Alan.
Yes, and I didn't plan on this. This is something that just dawned on me right in the middle of our conversation with him. I think I just said something like, "Hey, I want to give you a piece of crap," and I pulled one of our stickers out of my pocket and then put it on the table. And he took it and he put it with a bunch of other crap that he's got collected on the other side.
Oh my gosh. And of course, I think to myself, and you say to me later, wouldn't it be incredible if he picks our sticker out of his bag of crap
and signs it?
Yes, and gives it to someone else. What an honor that would be.
So if you are out there seeing Alan Tudyk and you ask a question and you get assigned "This Was Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea" podcast sticker, let us know. Because that would be incredible.
Gosh. It would be incredible.
So the second of the 3 sketch duels that we went to that day was the animators. And the animators just bang out sketch after sketch after sketch after sketch of all these different cartoon characters.
Mm-hmm.
In the audience, when they were taking suggestions, one lady kept yelling out Joker. And she kept yelling out Joker long after they stopped asking for suggestions.
Yes. Yeah, it was kind of obnoxious.
The moderator even said, "We're done taking suggestions." And then a little while later, Joker! So one of the 2 artists, and this was Richard Maurizio, he did a quick sketch of the Joker and held it up, and then she was happy and she remained quiet for the rest of the sketch duel. So I leaned over to you and I said, "Man, I pity the poor soul who wins that one," thinking that she was going to approach and bother them after the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they finished, and they had a lot of sketches. Some were like Bart Simpson and Tom from Tom and Jerry and Mighty Mouse and the Joker, obviously, and I don't remember what other things were drawn, but they had a lot to go through. And we're sitting there, and we're not winning, and we're not winning, and we're not winning, and we're not winning. And then the Joker is held up, and the lady behind us says something like, "That's the one I want." And I'm looking at my ticket, remembering what I said, and I knew with perfect certainty that my number was going to be called. And it was. Coincidence?
I think not.
So I have the sketch of the Joker hanging on my wall with all the other sketch duels that I've won. So we're at the end of Sunday, and there's only one more sketch duel left. And Casey Parsons is back, and he's the guy that did the Hellboy. Mm-hmm. And there were 2 suggestions again, and they only did one each. And this time, Casey did a full color sketch of Godzilla. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at that going, oh man, I'll give anything for this sketch of Godzilla. Mm-hmm. And we didn't win it.
No.
But I think somebody in the front row did.
Right. Front row definitely did.
But then we had a birthday party to get to, so we had to leave.
Yes, I tormented you with a 1-year-old's birthday party.
But there was cake.
Yeah, there was cake.
Yeah, and chocolate-covered pretzels. Mm-hmm. So all was good. Mm-hmm.
So one thing I wanted to note, we didn't talk much about the people that we interacted with. There was a bunch of them. Most of them, however, were local. Mm-hmm. All of the people that I remember speaking with were from the Philadelphia general area. Well, one guy was from Boston, but he was down visiting a friend in Philadelphia.
Right.
And I thought that was what I would have expected at the D&I convention, but didn't get, but I did get here in Philadelphia. There were lots and lots of local folks.
Right.
So I also wanted to mention that one of the things that we did was we went by the Fire and Ash booth, which is the one I mentioned last year. I've been following their different activities at the different conventions that they go to. And if you recall, she's the one that created the living hinge with the laser in a kind of a book form where they created Dice Tower. Mm-hmm. I had the conversation with them last year, and I gave them a piece of bird's eye maple.
Right.
And she mentioned it, and she pulled it out, and she says, "This is the one that I use all the time here in my booth to write notes and write receipts." So she uses it like a clipboard.
Yeah, your bird's eye maple piece that you gave her became a clipboard.
Right, but she was proud of it, and she said that she had spoken to a couple of different woodworkers, and when they talked about using different woods, she would pull this piece out and say, "Yeah, I was gifted this," and so she recalled who I was. And at the end of the convention on Sunday, I did go over there and dropped off a little pile of stickers in case she happens to run into another Douglas Adams fan, and they can be made aware of our podcast. So
right.
I do like what they're doing. I love the opportunity to advance creative vendors at these conventions, because it seems to me there's fewer and fewer of the ones that I would consider creative.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's all just retail toys and that kind of stuff.
Exactly. But I think we had a great time. I thought an awesome weekend.
It was very, very good. So happy we went.
I had to recover for a few days.
Oh, yeah.
And you talk about walking. It wasn't really that bad. I mean, we get off of the Patco at 8th and Market, and we walk up to 15th and Broad.
Yep.
So it's not that far. And of course, you're able to stop at Starbucks.
Yes, very important.
On the way. So every measure of that trip is designed to create pleasure for us.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I had a great time. I was so glad you were able to come out. And I look forward to our next opportunity to attend a convention together.
Yes, absolutely. And as a reminder, this is a bonus episode, but nothing has changed. We will still be doing our talk about the Salmon of Doubt in the Salmon of Doubt. So the unfinished Dirk Gently novel that is put in the end of the last quarter of the Salmon of Doubt.
That's right. Looking forward to that as well.
Yes.
Well, Jeff, now that we know what we're talking about next time, this is the end.
Carving a phallus?
Yeah, you would say that, wouldn't you?
I will cut that out. That's not going to be part of our thing. But I just had to get it out.
Yes, I know.
Because you
when you
put
talk about
crotch in the
crotches,
tree
what
in
else can you talk about, right?
Thank you for listening to this. A new episode is released on the first Thursday of every month. A special thank you goes out to Luke, Max, Greg, and Tim Lesnick for arranging and performing our opening theme. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettynetidea.buzzsprout.com. While there, you can find links to all of my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can contact us via email at digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. You can message us on Twitter, or should I say X, at Watches Idea, and our Instagram is Watches Idea Podcast.
This has been a Froods for Thought production.